Hello traders, Namaskar. Well, in this video, we will discuss a very basic concept that at times, especially when you have just begun learning the concepts of technical analysis, you might have doubts. Okay, how do we decide a high or a low? I have the Reliance chart in front of us, and is this a good low? Should this low be considered? Well, visually it looks like a good low. When it comes to high, what about this one and this one? So I thought that let's give an attempt and share my personal thoughts, how I dealt with it, and how do I decide upon a low or a high. Very important is first to answer the question, why do I even need a way, a rule to decide upon a high or a low, right? For example, you take a look at this area of Reliance Industries on the daily time frame. Now this can be a low, this can be a low. What about this or this? Maybe this. So classical technical analysis, conventional technical analysis, the subject would be around 140-50 years old from the times of Charles Dow. You would notice, you would have realized by now, if you have spent some time, that the subject, the conventional technical analysis, has a certain degree of subjectivity in it. Because of course the subject is about looking at a chart. It's like a picture. So beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. So if two of you take up the same chart and decide to draw lines, trend lines, supports and resistances, there are very high chances that you will end up drawing different trend lines. So we need a proper way to calculate, or proper way, not to exactly calculate, but figure out a high and low. Because highs and lows can act as good zones of supports, good areas of resistances. Highs and lows are of course used to decide upon, if I'm drawing a Fibonacci retracement, then which low to which high should I take. If I'm drawing a Fibonacci like this, something like this, then which low should I take up? Which high should I take up? It will also be useful when you're dropping something like an anchored VWAP. You want the VWAP price level anchored to a certain high or low. Now, how do I decide upon that high or low? So that's where an anchored VWAP, to decide upon the anchored VWAP's initiation point of start, some kind of a rule to decide upon the highs and lows is useful, rather than keeping it subjective, whimsical, fanciful. Let's have some kind of a rule. It's going to only make our life as a technical trader easier, right? So there are quite a few ways, but I found Bill Williams' approach of the fractal a simple and conceptually quite a valid one. Those who are not aware of the Bill Williams fractal concept, it's like if I take my left palm and I put it on the table right now, and if I attempt to draw it, then this is more or less, now this looks pretty alienish, but excuse my drawing skills with the mouse. This is how the 5 fingers will look like, at least. Where in this one, the middle finger is the tallest, longest, and we have 2 high points on the left which are lower to the middle fingers, and 2 high points on the right which are again lower to the middle finger. So this is a fractal high. Now when it comes to price, if this is a fractal high, you need not have the ones on the left, both of them sloping down like this. You need not have the ones on the right sloping down like this. इसका मतलब that if this is my fractal high, I can have the previous one like this and the previous one like this also. Bottom line is these two highs should be lower than this one. It need not be sloping down. It need not be in an ascending order. If it is, then it's fine. If it's not, still it's a fractal high. If this is a fractal high, then of course the reverse is the fractal low, which means that this is the little finger, the ring finger, the index finger, and maybe the thumb, something like this. Which the middle finger, the longest one, has two lows now on the right hand side and two lows on the left hand side, being higher to this one, which makes this as a fractal low. So if you have a price like this, then the previous two on the left and on the right should be higher. If you have an order like this, they're rising like this, it's good. Even if they're not rising, if they are just higher, it's workable, it's fine. You can see that this low point is higher than this low point, lower than this low point, but together these two low points are higher than this. That's all that we need. That's called a fractal low. This makes our life easier. This takes away the subjectivity from the fact of deciding upon a fractal low or high. So let's bring our attention to this Reliance daily chart. So can we call this a fractal high? The two bars on the left, the highs are lower than this? Yes. The two bars on the right, are the highs lower than this? Yes. So this is a fractal high. Now, one good thing about this particular rule based approach it's that I'm allowing the price a bit of time to form this high. A bit of confirmation is needed. So there's a fractal high. Is this a fractal low? Yes, I can clearly see the lows on the left hand side and the lows on the right hand side. Both of them are higher to this, so there's a fractal low. There's a fractal high. So it makes your life now easier. Now, is this a fractal low currently? I don't know. I have the left hand side wherein the lows are higher, but I'm yet to wait. I have to wait for two more bars in the future, next two bars, where if the lows are higher, than this, then this will become a fractal low. This is a fractal high. This is not a fractal high. Now let's take some examples of which is not a fractal high. You might get tempted that, let's say, when you are trying to analyze the retracement of this, you might drop a retracement like this. You may, I'm not saying this is wrong. These are subjective analysis. There's nothing right or wrong in subjective analysis, right? But as I said, to bring in a bit of rule, if I ask myself, is this a good enough high? Now on the right hand side, I have two highs which are lower. But on the left hand side, one high is lower, but the previous one is not. So I would not consider this point as a fractal. It is not a fractal high, so I will not consider this point for the purpose of drawing any kind of tools like a retracement or a trend line or an anchored VWAP. Anything that requires you to anchor your tool to a high point or a low point, I will not consider this. I will consider this one. I may consider this one. I may also consider this one. Now see, when you draw these tools, you will find you might land up in situations wherein two highs are very close to each other. So if you, let's say for example, if I drop a retracement from this high to this low, it looks like this. If I drop a retracement from this high to this low, it's going to be more or less very, very identical. There's not going to be much of a difference. So when you have two fractal highs or lows very close to each other, you may work with the highest one. It's okay, not a problem at all. And so you can also draw trend lines, joining these fractal highs, something like this. I can join a fractal high to this fractal high. This is also a trend line. Now, if I use this rule, if I continue to use this kind of a rule, then there will be some kind of a method in which I am analyzing the charts, and there's a method in which I am implementing the tools. If I have to draw a trend line, now I have a certain rule which not only makes my life easier to figure out the highs and lows and drop the trend line, but it also brings in a certain method to my analysis. It's not that I'm doing it randomly, right? So from that point of view, I really like the fact that one should, any technical analyst or someone who is passionate about charts and looking at charts for your purpose of analysis, you should come up with a rule in which you should decide upon a high and low without any confusion. Now, the good thing about these kind of approaches is the fact that they are simple. Mathematically, it's very easy. 2 bars on the left and 2 bars on the right. And so if I'm not mistaken, there happens to be an indicator called fractal in TradingView community scripts. If you go to their community library and just type on fractal, you'll find Williams fractals. Williams fractals, if I'm not mistaken, is a part of their pre-built indicator within, I was looking for F, but it's in Williams fractal. And so there you go. Now you can see that if you double click on it, it's asking for how many periods of bars on the left or the right do you want me to check. Keep it 2. 1 will give you a lot of highs and lows which may not have that kind of character in them, sincerity in them. So 2 is fine, 3 will be too much. And style is whether you want the arrows to be on the up or down and what color. These are all cosmetics, so I'm not going into them. So now you can see that we had marked these 2 highs, we had marked these 2 highs. So it's clearly marking the fractal highs and fractal lows for you. Last but not the least, I had read Bill Williams' work back in 2013. Interesting, but I didn't buy it so much. But of all his concepts, I really like the fractal, and thanks to him, I'm still using it just to make my life as a visual trader easy. Now, before I sign off, before I close this video, I would like to share that in his concept, if you read Bill Williams' work, he actually uses this as a pretty good breakout concept. That, for example, let's drop to a smaller time frame of Reliance Industries. Let's say 75-minute time frame. I purposely dropped into a lower time frame to show you how he would use the fractal. Is we can see Reliance has fallen. As it fell, it has created multiple fractal highs and it has started to create fractal lows also. Now, if a fractal high is being taken out, this can be used as a sign of a breakout long trade, a break above a fractal high. Breakout trades have their pros and cons. It's not part of this video, so I'm not going there. I will not suggest you to do this kind of trade. I personally do not like so much of breakout trades myself, but we can improve upon it. If you add another tool of his, the awesome oscillator, and we can refine this approach. But I thought that because we have plotted this fractal indicator on the charts, you would find that they tend to act as good supports and resistances as well. Especially in this case, you can see that 2 fractal lows at the same level. So when you get 2 fractal highs or multiple fractal highs or multiple fractal lows, these lows or these highs tends to be more important. And yes, one more thing is that if you look at multi-time frames, let's say on the left hand side I change it to weekly, on the right hand side I have the daily, then you notice that this is a fractal high on the weekly, and of course it's a fractal high also on the daily, which means this is a very, very strong, important fractal high resistance level for any kind of long-term gains. Any kind of long-term gains to happen, Reliance needs to break above that. So when there's a confluence of fractal highs and lows in multiple time frames, it adds more significance, value, importance to your chart, right? All right, so do let me know what are your thoughts. Number one, if you have never thought of setting up a rule to decide upon the highs and lows, you might find this interesting. Give it a try. It makes your life easier. Number two, if you have already been using some rule to decide highs and lows apart from this fractal, do let me know. I'll learn something new from you. Last but not the least, if you've already been using this concept of fractal, how have been your experience, right? Okay, I'm quite sure you've been taking good care of yourselves. Trade well, trade wise. Good night.